Hey now, my name is Todd Curtis Nairn, and now it's time for another true, scary story. This one's called Hog Killing, and it involves me and my brother, Walker Jr. And this story is just as true as it gets, because we lived through it, and we were the main witnesses in it. So you better believe this is true. And it happened just the way I'm telling you. Hog killing. It was cold that winter morning when Walker Jr., my brother, and I got out of bed and rushed to put on our heavy clothes over our long johns because we were late getting up. We knew that all the grown-up men had been up for hours getting ready for the hog killing that was going to take place that day. Now, if you don't know what a hog killing is, just sit back and let me explain. When Walker Jr. and I were little boys, and all the years before that, folks raised their own hogs. During the winter, all the neighbors would get together and kill hogs, cut up the meat and grind the sausage, to put in the smokehouse to eat the rest of the year. It was big fun for all of us little country boys and girls around. Now to start off with, early in the morning the men folks would get up and start a big fire under a vat. That's a big barrel cut in half, filled with water until it was scorching hot. I mean boiling hot. Then we would all ride on a big trailer to the hog pen to start our deadly work. We'd walk right up to the right hog, bend down face to face, put the gun barrel on the forehead of the hog, and pull the trigger, sending a .22 hollow point through the brain and killing him real quick. At this point, the hog would freeze up and fall over on the ground pretty near finished. A real skilled fellow with a big butcher knife, in our case called Uncle John, would walk up to the hog real quick like, stab him in the big veins in his neck, so all the blood would come out. And come out it does. The blood shoots out of his neck about a foot or two, just a squirt, until it's all gone out of the hog. We call this bleeding the hog, since the blood, if it was left in him, would spoil the meat. Now I'm telling you, it's a strange feeling looking at all that blood pooling on the ground as the steam rises off it, knowing it was just beating through the heart of that hog. We would then put the hog on the trailer and take him to the boiling vat to start getting the hair off. Now let me tell you how we did this, because this is really where the story begins. You see, some strong men would put the hog vat in the scalding water, would loosen up the hair, and we would all bend over the vat and scrape that old coarse hair with the old-timey jar lids, the flat part, not the ring part. And as the skin would start to turn white, the hair would settle to the bottom of the vat. When the water cooled down, the hog would be turned over and the water would come spilling out along with the hair. And after years of hogs being in that vat, there was a lot of hair on that ground. We would then take the hog, string him up by his tendons, his Achilles tendons, the ones right behind the ankles, and begin to gut him, cut his head off, and then commence to cut him in different parts to be salted and hung up in the smokehouse. This all took a good long day, but it was still big fun. I think that ought to give you a pretty good idea of how the hog killing took place. Now let me tell you the scary part of this story, which I will remember until the day I go to heaven, I hope. You see, on this day, when we put that big old hog in the vat and all them men gathered around and started scraping off the hair, my friend Joshua was standing beside his daddy, who was kneeling down working on the scraping. Poor Joshy lost his grip on his daddy's shoulder and fell into the boiling vat of water. Now that's bad enough, But Joshy just didn't fall on the hog. He fell beside the hog and went under him. to the very bottom of it. And when his daddy saw this, without a minute thinking, reached into the vat and felt the boy's hands and pulled as hard as he could, but the water was so hot that it just pulled up scalded skin from the poor boy's arm. By this time, all the men had pulled the hog out and started sticking shovels in there and pulled him out, but it was much too late. Much too late. He was already dead, and most of the skin had come off and settled among the hog hay in the bottom. Now, this turned out to be a real sad day for everybody, but it was hard to see that daddy holding this little boy crying like I never seen a man cry before. Well, out of deep respect, the hog killing was over for that family, and Josh's folks started the mourning process. It took a while for the memory to begin to fade out for me. Spring and summer finally came, and Walker Jr. and I went out into the dusk of the day to play with the other boys when we heard some soft crying down the path toward the old hog vat. We walked real slow to see what was going on down there, and sure enough, we saw little Joshy kneeling down among the hog hair, crying and picking through the hair, finding little pieces of his skin and trying to get it and put it back on himself, but it was useless. We were scared to death and frozen in fear. The little fellow looked up at us and exposed his fat little face and looked at us as if he were melting. He then began to hold himself as if to keep from falling apart and disappearing. This is one experience I have never seen to shake. And even to this day, sometimes when I blink my eyes, I can still see that poor Joshua kneeling in the hog there.